Hello, I'm Elaine Burke, editor of Silicon Republic, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of the Empower Data Governance Programme, an ambitious all-Ireland research initiative spanning academia and industry. Funded by Science Foundation Ireland, the Empower Research Programme is designed to drive innovation in data protection, not just here in Ireland, but internationally. It is a programme that represents a collaboration between 4 SFI research centres, as well as multi-sectoral industry partners. Those 4 research centres are the Software Research Centre, Lero, ADAPT, which focuses on AI-driven digital content technology, FutureNeuro, a research centre for chronic and rare neurological diseases, and the Insight Research Centre for data analytics. Empower will be based at Maynooth University with Professor Marcus Helfert as its director. Its aim is to progress how citizens and organisations can best share and extract value from data in this age of digital information, while always safeguarding the rights of those sharing their data. Today, we will be introducing you to Empower and hopefully answering many questions you may have about this research initiative. Please note that this session is being recorded and our guests can post questions or comments in the chat box. This input could inspire further discussion points for Empower. Later, we will have panel discussions that will give insight into best practices for developing robust data ecosystems and the challenges therein. But first, please welcome Simon Harris, TD, our Minister for Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, to officially launch the Empower Data Governance Programme.
Hello there, I'm delighted to be able to contribute to your event today and to formally launch Empower. Empower brings together key expertise to build a world-leading collaborative research programme. And the overall goal is to develop new systems and methods to support data governance in the real-world application of data-driven solutions. One of this government's core ambitions is to build competitive advantage and to foster enterprise development through a world-class research and innovation system. The formation of my department takes this goal to a new level. I want this department to be a strategic enabler of the opportunities we have and to see us become an innovation island. Empower clearly demonstrates that when we combine talent and investment, we here in Ireland can undertake cutting-edge, impactful research. We can compete with the very best internationally, and we can contribute solutions to address global challenges. I'd really like to congratulate and wish everyone involved in Empower the very best for the project. It is an important strategic research project for our country. I'd like to acknowledge also the key role of the host and partner institutions in multiple higher education institutions, SFI research centres, and the many other collaborators from industry and from government. You all have a key role to play in ensuring the success of this project. I'd particularly like to acknowledge the work done by Professor Brian Donnellan at Maynooth University for bringing all of the partners together and developing the project, and Professor Marcus Helfert, also at Maynooth University, who has driven the project forward over the months. I look forward to hearing much more about this project in the coming months as it progresses and goes to the next stage. I wish you all the very best. Cohortigus, Gurmila Mogov.
Thank you for that, Minister Harris. Next up, we have an address from Professor Mark Ferguson, Director General of Science Foundation Ireland and Chief Scientific Advisor to the Government.
So thank you very much, and thank you to Minister Harris for launching today's event. So it's really terrific to have the launch of Empower, which is a spoke programme. The spoke programme within Science Foundation Ireland research centres is about allowing those research centres to add new initiatives, new collaborators, new programmes to keep the centre dynamic. And furthermore, it's about collaboration between the research centres, which you see here today with the 4 SFI research centres that are involved in this: Lero, FutureNeuro, Insight and ADAPT. So data governance is really important. If you ask the question, why Ireland for some major research initiatives, then most of the major multinational companies that are based in Ireland, many of which are data rich, have Ireland as the data regulator. They host the data here, either in data centres or elsewhere, and they fall under Ireland for data governance. So that's a really powerful why Ireland advantage. The industry is here, it's here at scale, multinational companies, many of which are represented in the collaboration here with Empower, companies such as Siemens, such as Facebook, and also startup companies, Truara or Tara here, and you'll hear from them a little later on. The budget envelope is close to 10 million. That represents funding from Science Foundation Ireland, but it also represents funding in cash and in kind from the multiple industry collaborators. And this allows the centre to really address key issues that sit around data governance. And it's very, very important in today's world that those issues are addressed in a collaboration between academia, industry, the government, the various regulators, those who are responsible for standards. There is much to be gained from mining large amounts of data, particularly public data, but equally, the public expects certain standards and safeguards of those data and certain rights. And this is a really important area. I'm very fond of saying, for example, in the area of genome sequencing, if you have total privacy and you are the only person in the world who knows your genomic sequence, then it is perfectly useless to you, because the only value of that genomic sequence from a health point of view, from a predictive point of view, is if you're able to compare it with a database of other sequences that show you the predisposition, for example, to certain diseases or disorders or resistance to certain factors. So there's this careful balance between privacy on the one hand, public good on the other hand, and essentially enlightened public good, whereby the individual can get back advantage from their own data when it's pooled with others. So that's a key issue for this particular research centre. I'm absolutely delighted that it pulls together a number of collaborators, those from across government. You'll hear later in the panels from a chief information officer, from a CEO of the National Standards Institute and so on, from people across the European Union. It also pulls in large industry players, small industry players, and the expertise within a number of SFI research centres. And this is a real opportunity for Ireland to lead. I said earlier that it addresses the why Ireland question, but it also addresses a global question that's at the forefront of people's minds. And I think in Ireland, we also have a specific advantage because there is a mutual respect and collaborative spirit between the academic sector, the government sector, and industry. And that's not always true in all countries, but it's very important in order to get this area right. We need to understand the inputs from all of those various actors, and we need to understand what their aims are, what data are there, what new methods of governance and so on can be thought about. Now, later on, those leading the centre will talk about some of the new models that they hope to address within the research. I'm not going to do that. I'll let them do that. But I would like to especially thank colleagues in the IDA and also my own staff within Science Foundation Ireland, who facilitated a whole series of workshops, pulling together the key players from industry, from academia, from the government sector, to really thrash out this spoke program. So this spoke program didn't miraculously fall off a tree. It actually came about through a whole series of workshops where the players came together, where they really focused on what they wanted to do, what were the areas that needed to be addressed. As you heard from the Minister, Brian Donlan was very helpful in coordinating those meetings, and then subsequently Marcus, who's leading the initiative, driving this forward. So really important collaboration across the ecosystem. I'd also like to pay particular tribute to the SFI Research Centre directors for coming together, and to Marcus Heffer for leading this particular programme. It's really an important programme. It's really important to draw together that expertise, and it's really important for the digital transformation that's going on within society. And you can see that. You can see it reflected in a number of government strategies where platforms such as this are highlighted, for example, in the artificial intelligence or the digital national strategy. So I'm delighted that so many people have come together to Empower. I really wish the Empower programme the very best in terms of addressing research going forward. I'd love to see more multinational and small and medium enterprises join. Love to see any complementary academic expertise join. These spoke programs are dynamic. They link together the research centres. They allow new areas to be explored. They allow the facilitation of the collaboration across academia in Ireland, across the various industry networks, both large and small, and the various government networks. And let's make this work, because I think if it does work, it can be really world leading. It is an area that addresses the why Ireland question. It's an area that we can take global leadership It's very important for citizens who are represented, obviously, in the collaboration. And it's very important for the future of our society, where data is such an important currency and where its careful curation allows for a great public and indeed commercial good, as well as respecting the privacy of citizens, but also allowing them to gain from the exploration of those data. So I'm delighted to welcome the initiative, delighted to be here at the launch, and I wish you all the very best. Good luck with the research. I hope it's truly world-beating, and I look forward to reading about it in the future years. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks so much, Professor Ferguson. Before we get stuck into our panel discussions, we're going to hear from Professor Brian Fitzgerald, Director of Lero, one of the 4 research centres participating in Empower, and Professor Marcus Helfert, Professor in Digital Service Innovation at Maynooth University and now Director of Empower.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I'm Brian Fitzgerald, Director of Lero. So I will add my comments to the very strong statements already made by the Minister and Mark Ferguson. So recently I was reading about the Apollo spacecraft back in the 1960s, which was a pretty sophisticated object. It had 2 kilobytes of data storage. If we fast forward to today with connected health networks, smart cities, sensors deployed all over the planet, we keep having to invent new terms for the amount of data being generated. So a gigabyte, a terabyte, a petabyte, a brontobyte, I believe, is the latest figure that's being term that's been coined. And that's 10 with 27 zeros. And that really puts Moore's law in terms of exponential growth in the shade. So we have these huge amounts of data. Clive Humby, who's the consultant who came up with the club card concept for Tesco about 15 years ago, he's credited with coining the phrase that data is the new oil. And we know that lots of companies have shown us that data is indeed a new oil, that it can really be monetized and fortunes can be made. But just like oil needs to be refined, there are enormous political ramifications around the concept of oil. And it's probably even more so for data. So data and indeed metadata need governance to ensure that it's used responsibly and that the ethical needs are respected. So that's vital. And Empower is the project that's focused on this critical area for the citizens and organizations today. Mark mentioned this. I think it's really appropriate that Ireland is the place where this research happens. I think we're unique globally. We have a mix of industry partners who are household names globally, and also a smaller indigenous industry, which is also key in this area. We have government agencies on board as well. And we have the 4 research centres, which I can speak most about, I guess. So those 4 research centres are world leading in their areas. They represent about 1,000 highly qualified researchers that can be brought to bear on any specific problem. So when you put that amount of critical mass of research together to work on a problem, you can really compete globally in that case. So FutureNeuro, as mentioned, are in the health space, Adapt in digital media, digital content, Insight and data analytics, and Lero are a software research center. So the complementary skills across that network are extremely impressive, I believe, and really world class. Software is how all the algorithms are implemented, for example. I'm reminded of Larry Lessig, the US lawyer and political commentator. He's coined the phrase, or observed recently, that code is law. And what he's referring to is the fact that for most modern life is governed by software, but it's written in a code that's invisible to most people. So it's really key that we expose that and behave responsibly and ethically in how we design software and deliver it. And likewise, so in this area of data governance, it's critical that we can reassure public and citizens that this data has been used responsibly and ethically and has been governed properly. So as many people have mentioned, I believe this unique partnership represented by Empower will deliver a major contribution internationally. I'm very pleased that Lero is host to this research spoke project. And I'm delighted to hand over to Professor Marcus Helfert, Director of Empower, to tell you a little bit more about the research agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And also from my side as Director of Empower, a welcome to the launch event. So I'm particularly excited about the opportunity this program provides in establishing in Ireland leading practice in data governance with an international scale. So I think with that research program co-created with the partners, industry, research partners, and the wider stakeholder. I think we have an innovative and strategic research agenda, which you see on the slides here, with 5 streams around data governance challenges. And I think it also presents a timely response. And Brian just mentioned data as the new gold, the new resource, as to establish data ecosystems, which works for data sharing, but in a trusted and safe environment. So to balance innovation on the one side and value creation, but also on the other side with a trusted ethics aspects for that data environment, that it works for all. So the research ranges from business aspects, technology, standards, ethics to form a truly multidisciplinary approach for data ecosystems, which works and which can share benefits and which can actually advance data governance practice in an international scale. What you see on the slide are 5 research streams which we developed over several months with the partners together, ranging on the left side on the stream 1 on data markets, data ecosystems, understanding value creation, what data can provide to value creation, and also capabilities, skills which are required to establish these data ecosystems. Then in the second pillar around regulations, regulatory sandboxes, understanding the impact of regulations, how far and testing regulations, also, for example, monitoring on the international scale what other initiatives are happening, particularly on the European scale. Then leading to technology. Of course, technology is the driver of automation of data governance, artificial intelligence, for example, but also technologies such as privacy-preserving technologies, which can ensure to cater for privacy, also manage consent in an automated way to allow data governance, data that scales, that actually can exploit these opportunities, and then leading to standards, governance models, processes, frameworks which are essential to establish in organization, in enterprises, to have best practices codified in standards and governance practices. And then the 5th stream is about people-centric ethics, societal needs, the wider aspects of data governance. So if we want to make that data ecosystem work for all, we need to consider these wider aspects, essential components. And so I truly believe that this research agenda, this multidisciplinary research agenda, and the collaborative approach together with industry, stakeholders, policymakers, researchers, can really realize the vision of Empower to establish leading practice in data governance with international scale as a key pillar to establish these data ecosystem, these interconnected, trusted data ecosystems which provide value, which really help us to establish the ecosystems. So Empower will establish the hub for data governance research in Ireland, but with an international scope. And I'm looking forward to working with all, collaborating with all over the next couple of years and leading that program to realize the vision, but also I think the ambitious research program from Empower. So I'm really looking forward to that task. And thanks to all, and handing over to Elaine for continuing with the program.